In a time before time, when the world as we know it was but a whisper in the wind, ancient peoples crafted stories that would shape their understanding of life, death, and the gods who govern them. From the frozen northlands of Scandinavia, a world emerged filled with gods of unimaginable power, beasts of chaos, and an eternal struggle between order and destruction. But where did these stories come from? How did the myths of Odin, Thor, and Loki, tales of creation and apocalypse, originate? Were they merely legends spun to entertain? Or do they reveal something deeper, something primal about the fears and hopes of the Norse people? Join us as we journey into the ancient world of the Norse, unraveling the origins of the mythology that shaped not only their beliefs, but their very way of life. In this video, we'll explore the mysterious roots of these legendary tales, tracing them back to the sagas and poems that have survived centuries. This is the story of gods, giants, and heroes. This is the origin of Norse mythology. Let's begin. Long before the rise of empires and kings, before the birth of great nations, there was a world shaped by fire and ice, where gods ruled and fate was written in the stars. This world, wild and unforgiving, was the cradle of Norse mythology. Norse mythology is more than a collection of myths and legends. It's a living, breathing narrative of a people's connection to the cosmos, a framework to understand the forces of nature, life, and death. It is the story of gods like Odin, Thor, and Freyja, but it's also the story of mankind's struggle against a chaotic and often hostile universe. To the Norse, these tales weren't just entertainment. They were a way of explaining the unexplainable. The significance of Norse mythology extends far beyond the sagas of gods and monsters. These stories shaped the culture of the Viking Age, influencing everything from their religious practices to their sense of honor and fate. The tales of Asgard, Midgard, and the Nine Realms are etched into the very foundations of Scandinavian history. They shaped the moral compass of warriors, guided the rituals of chieftains, and held together communities in a time of constant warfare and hardship. Even today, the echoes of these myths resonate in literature, art, and modern pop culture. But how do we know these stories? The Norse left behind no written record of their beliefs. Instead, their mythology was preserved through oral tradition, passed down from skalds, the storytellers of the Viking Age. It wasn't until centuries later, when Icelandic scholars began to write down these ancient tales, that the myths were finally captured in text. The Poetic Edda and the Prose Edda, two Icelandic manuscripts dating back to the 13th century, are our most vital sources for understanding Norse mythology. These works contain the poems, sagas, and stories that reveal the vast pantheon of gods and the mythic events that shape their world. Yet, even with these texts, much of Norse mythology remains shrouded in mystery, as many stories were lost to time. But the Eddas are only part of the story. Archaeological evidence, such as the rune stones, burial sites, and intricate carvings found across Scandinavia, offers us another glimpse into this forgotten world. These physical remnants, combined with the sagas, reveal the complex interplay of myth and reality in Norse society. From the gods who guided them to the rituals they practiced, Norse mythology was intertwined with every aspect of life and death. This is where our journey begins. At the intersection of legend, history, and archaeology, we will unravel the mysteries of the gods, the giants, and the forces that shape the Viking world. But remember, these are not just stories. They are the echoes of a world that once was. Long before the Viking Age, before the tales of Thor's hammer and Odin's wisdom spread across the northern lands, the seeds of Norse mythology had already begun to take root. Their origins trace back to a time far older, into the distant past of a people who wandered the wilds of ancient Europe, forging not only civilizations, but entire pantheons of gods. To understand the true depth of Norse mythology, We must go back, farther than the Eddas, back to the ancient ancestors of the Norse. Thousands of years ago, a vast cultural and linguistic group known as the Proto-Indo-Europeans began to spread across the continent, migrating from the steppes of Eurasia into the lands that would one day become home to the Greek, Roman, and Vedic civilizations. As they traveled, these peoples carried with them not just language, but stories, myths of powerful gods, elemental forces, and cosmic battles. These ancient stories would evolve over time, but the echoes remain. The thunderous might of Thor, for example, bears a striking resemblance to Zeus and Jupiter, the storm gods of Greek and Roman mythology. The wisdom of Odin finds its reflection in the Vedic god Varuna, a master of magic and fate. These similarities are no accident. They are fragments of a shared mythological past, threads in a tapestry woven across millennia. But as the centuries passed, these threads unraveled, transforming into something uniquely Norse. As the Proto-Indo-Europeans scattered, some groups settled in the harsh wilderness of northern Europe. Among them were the early Germanic tribes, ancestors of the Norse. Their world was shaped by the land itself, vast forests, deep fjords, and unforgiving winters. As these tribes migrated across Scandinavia, their gods began to evolve, merging with the raw elements of nature they revered. Their mythology shifted, taking on a darker, more primal tone, fitting for the brutal environment they lived in. The movement of these tribes wasn't just a physical migration, it was a spiritual one. Their gods and myths adapted to the land, creating new stories of giants and elves, of frost and fire. Over centuries, the Germanic people forged a belief system rooted not just in the heavens, but in the very earth beneath their feet. Religion for these early Germanic peoples wasn't confined to temples or sacred texts. It was lived, breathed, and felt through every aspect of their daily lives. They practiced a form of animism, the belief that all things in nature possessed a spirit. The trees, the rivers, the mountains, each held power. They venerated not only the gods, but the land itself and their ancestors, whose spirits continued to watch over them. This deep connection to the natural world shaped their rituals and beliefs. Offerings were made to sacred groves and stones, and elaborate burial rites were performed to ensure that the dead would find peace in the afterlife. These practices were intertwined with their mythology, which told of a world governed by unseen forces, a balance between gods, spirits, and men. Through these rituals, the Germanic tribes sought not just protection, but harmony with the wild forces that ruled their world. And so, from the ancient Proto-Indo-European roots, to the migration of the Germanic tribes, to the veneration of ancestors and nature, Norse mythology began to take form. It was shaped by the movements of peoples, the harsh realities of life in the north, and an unshakable bond to the natural world. But as we'll see, the gods who emerged from these beliefs were not benevolent. They were as wild and unpredictable as the world around them. Before there was anything, before the world, before the gods, there was nothing. An endless void of silence and shadow. A place of infinite possibility, yet devoid of life. This was Ginnungagap, the yawning, primordial void where existence itself waited to be born. At the edges of this void, two realms emerged, one of fire, Muspelheim, and one of ice, Niflheim. These opposing forces crept closer and closer until their collision created something extraordinary. Where fire met ice, life began to stir. In the heart of Ginnungagap, the melting ice formed the first being, a giant known as Ymir. Ymir was no ordinary giant. He was the progenitor of all life, a monstrous figure born of chaos, whose body held within it the seeds of creation. From his sweat and flesh, new giants came into being. But alongside Ymir, another life form was born, one of a very different nature. Audhumla, the somehow emerge from the ice as well. Her role, strange and vital. She nourished Ymir with her milk, and in turn, she uncovered something hidden beneath the ice. With each stroke of her tongue, she revealed the figure of Buri, the first of the gods. Buri's descendants would one day challenge Ymir, and through them, the world as we know it would be born. Buri's grandson Odin, along with his brothers Vili and Ve, would soon rise to become the architects of the universe. The three gods knew that Ymir, the source of all giants, was both a creator and a threat. His immense power could no longer be left unchecked, and so they conspired against him, setting in motion one of the most violent acts in mythic history. With Ymir's death, his body became the foundation of the cosmos. From his flesh, Odin and his brothers shaped the earth. From his bones, they formed the mountains. His blood became the seas, his skull the sky, and his brain the clouds. The very landscape of the universe was crafted from his remains, a brutal creation carved from the destruction of a primordial being. From this violent birth, the 9 realms of Norse cosmology took shape. Midgard, the realm of men, Asgard, home of the gods, and the many worlds in between. Odin, Vili, and Ve had not only slain Ymir, they had brought order to the chaos of Ginnungagap, forging a world from the void itself. But the slaying of Ymir was only the beginning. The gods may have shaped the world, but their actions would set in motion forces far beyond their control. The giants would never forget, and the seeds of conflict between gods, giants, and men had already been sown. In the balance of creation lay the promise of destruction. In the heart of Norse mythology stands a single structure that connects all existence. A mighty tree, whose roots burrow into the darkest depths of the cosmos, and whose branches reach toward the heavens. This is Yggdrasil, the World Tree. Its branches stretch beyond the mortal world, linking the realms of gods, giants, and men, and its roots anchor the very fabric of reality. Yggdrasil is no ordinary tree. It is the axis of the universe, the spine that holds together the 9 realms. From its base to its highest boughs, Yggdrasil sustains all life, keeping the balance between chaos and order. It is the symbol of life, death, and rebirth, a living connection between the physical world and the unseen forces that govern it. The World Tree stands at the center of Norse cosmology, and through it, the fates of gods, men, and giants are intertwined. The 9 realms are the foundation of the Norse universe, each one unique, yet all connected through Yggdrasil. At the top lies Asgard, the shining realm of the gods, home to Odin, Thor, and the Aesir. It is a place of grandeur and power, but also of constant tension, where the gods prepare for the coming of Ragnarok. Below Asgard lies Midgard, the realm of men, our world. Encircled by the great sea serpent Jormungandr, Midgard is fragile, caught between the struggles of gods and giants. Yet it is here that the fate of the cosmos will ultimately be decided. Beneath Midgard lies Helheim, the realm of the dead. It is a place of cold and shadow, ruled by the goddess Hel. Here, the souls of those who die unworthy deaths dwell in eternal darkness, far from the glory of Valhalla. Yggdrasil's roots stretch into the realms of mystery and danger. Jotunheim, the realm of the giants, lies in eternal opposition to Asgard, an untamed wilderness of ice and stone, where giants scheme against the gods. Alfheim, home of the Light Elves, is a realm of beauty and magic, existing on the border between the seen and unseen. Svartalfheim, the dark and subterranean land of the dwarves, is where great weapons are forged, including the fabled hammer of Thor. The 9 realms do not exist in isolation. They are bound together by the roots and branches of Yggdrasil, in constant interaction and conflict. The gods of Asgard keep watch over Midgard, influencing the fate of men. The giants of Jotunheim, ever seeking revenge, threaten the balance of the cosmos. And from the depths of Helheim, the dead wait, knowing that the day of reckoning is drawing near. Through Yggdrasil, the realms are not just connected by physical space, but by fate itself. The gods' actions ripple through Midgard, and the stirring of giants in Jotunheim sends shockwaves across all creation. Every realm affects the other, and the fragile balance maintained by Yggdrasil can shift at any moment. Yggdrasil stands as the guardian of the universe, but it is not invincible. It is said that during Ragnarok, at the end of days, even the mighty world tree will tremble. The 9 realms, connected for eternity, are bound to share the same fate. But until that day comes, Yggdrasil holds the cosmos together, linking gods, men, and giants in a web of destiny. In the heart of Norse mythology lies a pantheon of gods, beings of immense power who rule over life and death, wisdom and war. But these gods are not immortal in the way of other myths. They are bound by fate, and their ultimate destiny is to fall. 2 tribes dominate the Norse cosmos, the Aesir and the Vanir, united in purpose but divided by their origins. The Aesir, the warlike gods of Asgard, represent order and control. Odin, their king, rules with wisdom but also with violence, forever preparing for the final battle of Ragnarok. The Vanir, on the other hand, are gods of fertility, wealth, and nature, presiding over growth and prosperity. While the Aesir thrive on conflict, the Vanir flourish in peace. But once, these 2 tribes were at war, a war that shook the heavens. The war between the Aesir and Vanir raged across the cosmos, until, after years of destruction, a fragile peace was forged. The 2 tribes exchanged hostages. Njord, Freyja, and Freyr, gods of the Vanir, were sent to live among the Aesir, and thus the 2 clans became one. Yet tensions always simmered beneath the surface, never fully forgotten. At the center of this divine assembly stands Odin, the All-Father, King of the gods, Master of wisdom, war, and death. His hunger for knowledge is insatiable, and he sacrifices greatly for it, even offering up his own eye to drink from the well of wisdom. But Odin is not just a god of learning. He is also the architect of war, forever seeking to arm Asgard for the coming apocalypse. To unlock the secrets of the universe, Odin sacrificed himself to himself, hanging from the world tree, Yggdrasil, for 9 nights, pierced by his own spear. He learned the runes, ancient symbols of power that govern fate, and became the god who sees all, knowing that even he cannot escape his doom. If Odin is the mind of the Aesir, Thor is its fist. The god of thunder, protector of Midgard and mankind, Thor is the strongest of the gods. His hammer, Mjolnir, is a weapon of unimaginable power, capable of smashing mountains and defending Asgard from the giants. Thor's strength is legendary, but his purpose is clear: to protect the realms from chaos and destruction. Thor's eternal battle against the forces of chaos, the frost giants of Jotunheim, and the serpents of the deep, is a struggle to maintain balance. Yet even Thor, the mightiest of gods, knows that his power cannot stop the inevitable approach of Ragnarok. Still, he fights with unrelenting ferocity for the world he protects. But where Thor defends, Loki deceives. The trickster god, Loki is a master of chaos, weaving lies and mischief through the fabric of the cosmos. His role in the Pantheon is as complex as it is dangerous. Friend and enemy, ally and betrayer, Loki walks the line between loyalty and destruction, forever testing the limits of the gods. Loki's mischief often brings disaster, but his actions are not mere games. He is destined to be the harbinger of Ragnarok, the force that will betray the gods and bring about the end of the world. Yet even as he walks his dark path, the gods remain tied to him, bound by fate to a trickster they cannot fully trust, but cannot escape. Beyond Odin, Thor, and Loki, the Norse pantheon is filled with the gods of great power and complexity. Freyja, goddess of both love and war, presides over life and death, choosing the slain warriors who join her in fulfillment. Tyr, god of justice, sacrifices his hand to bind the great wolf Fenrir, showing that honor demands more than strength. Heimdall, the watchman of the gods, stands guard over the Bifrost, ever ready to sound the horn that will signal the beginning of the end. Each of these gods plays a vital role in the balance of the cosmos, their actions shaping the world in ways both seen and unseen. But even they know that their time is limited. The threads of fate woven by the Norns are pulling ever tighter, drawing the gods inexorably toward Ragnarok, the final battle that will consume them all. In the cold and desolate reaches beyond the realms of gods and men, there live beings older than time itself. The Jotnar, the giants. Born from the chaos of Ginnungagap, they are the primal forces of destruction, forever locked in a bitter struggle with the gods of Asgard. The enmity between gods and giants is as old as creation, and it will only end with Ragnarok, the doom of all things. The Jotnar are not mere enemies. They are the embodiment of chaos, a force that the gods fight desperately to control. From the frost giants of Jotunheim, who bring endless winters, to the fire giants of Muspelheim, led by the fearsome Surtur, who will one day engulf the world in flames, the giants are woven into the very fabric of Norse mythology. Their conflict with the gods shapes the fate of the 9 realms. Time and again, the gods of Asgard clash with these ancient foes. Thor, the protector of Midgard, spends his days battling the giants, knowing that their growing strength threatens the very existence of the cosmos. Yet, the Jotnar are not simply monsters. They are beings with their own ancient wisdom and power. And as the end approaches, their role in the final battle looms ever larger. Far from the icy wastelands of the giants, deep beneath the mountains of Svartalfheim, another race shapes the fate of gods and men. The dwarves, master blacksmiths and craftsmen of the cosmos, are creators of some of the most powerful objects in all of Norse mythology. With unmatched skill, they forge weapons and treasures of immense power, each one carrying the weight of destiny. Among their greatest creations is Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor, a weapon capable of leveling mountains and striking down the giants. But this is only one of many. From Odin's spear, Gungnir, to the golden bristled boar Gullinbursti, the gifts of the dwarves are not just tools. They are symbols of power, bound to the fate of the gods themselves. Without the work of these hidden craftsmen, the gods would be defenseless in the face of their enemies. Beyond the physical realms of gods and giants, there exist other beings, creatures tied to the magic and mystery of the universe. The elves, both light and dark, dwell in their own realms, far from the mortal world. The light elves of Alfheim are said to be as radiant as the sun, while the dark elves of Svartalfheim dwell in shadows, practicing secret arts. The role of the elves in Norse cosmology is one of magic and influence. Though they remain distant from the affairs of men, their presence is felt through the enchanted places of the world. Their magic aids both gods and humans, though their true motives remain ever mysterious. And then there are the Valkyries, choosers of the slain, divine warriors sent by Odin himself to collect the souls of the bravest warriors who fall in battle. These shield maidens ride across the skies, sweeping the fallen up to Valhalla, where they will feast and fight until the day of Ragnarok. The Valkyries are more than mere guides to the afterlife. They are the instruments of Odin's plan for the final battle. Each warrior they claim strengthens the forces of Asgard, preparing for the ultimate war that will decide the fate of the gods and the 9 realms. The Valkyries are Odin's eyes on the battlefield, and through them, he ensures that when the time comes, the gods will not stand alone. To the Norse, the line between the mortal world and the divine was thin, and their gods were never far from reach. Through powerful sacred rituals known as Blot, the people of Scandinavia connected with their gods, offering blood and sacrifice to maintain the fragile balance between life and death, order and chaos. Blot was the most important ritual in Norse religion. Sacrifices of animals, and in rare cases humans, were made to honor the gods and ask for their favor. Blood was the gift of life, and through its offering, the Norse believed they could appease the gods, ensuring prosperity for their people and protection from the forces of chaos. These rituals were performed during critical times of the year, before battle, at harvest, or during times of crisis. Whether held in open fields, sacred groves, or by ancient stone altars, the blot was more than a religious act. It was a bond, a contract between mortals and the divine, sealed with sacrifice. And through this bond, the Norse believed they could influence the unseen forces that shaped their world. Though the Norse built temples to honor their gods, their connection to the divine was often rooted in the natural world. Sacred sites, groves, rivers, and mountains were places where the veil between the human and the divine was thin. Here, the gods were present, listening to the prayers of their people. Temples such as the one at Uppsala stood as mighty symbols of faith, where grand offerings were made and the people could gather to celebrate and worship. At these temples, people came to give their offerings, seeking blessings from the Aesir and Vanir, the gods who ruled their fates. These sacred halls were places of community, where rituals were performed and feasts were held. But more often, the Norse turned to the wilderness, to groves of trees or the banks of rivers, where they believed the spirit of the land was just as powerful as the gods of Asgard. Of all the rites practiced by the Norse, none were more solemn or sacred than their funeral rituals. Death was not the end, but the beginning of a new journey, one that would take the fallen either to Valhalla, where they would feast and fight until Ragnarok, or to Helheim, the land of the dead. How one was buried determined much about their fate in the afterlife. And so the rituals surrounding death were carried out with utmost care and reverence. Great warriors and chieftains were often sent to their rest in grand funeral ships, filled with riches and possessions to aid them in the afterlife. The ship, sometimes set ablaze and sent out to sea, symbolized the voyage into the unknown, a passage from one world to the next. For others, burial mounds were raised, marking their place of eternal rest. But these funerals were not just about honoring the dead, they were about ensuring their spirits could move on, leaving the living in peace. In Norse belief, the afterlife was not a singular destination, but a complex web of realms. Valhalla for the brave, Helheim for those who died of illness or old age. And through their funeral rites, the Norse made certain that the dead found their way to whichever realm awaited them. These rituals connected the living and the dead, ensuring that the cycle of life, death, and rebirth continued unbroken. At the heart of Norse mythology lies a force more powerful than the gods themselves: fate. Woven by the hands of the Norns, the very fabric of destiny binds all living things, from the humblest mortal to the mightiest gods of Asgard. The Norns, mysterious and ancient, sit beneath the world tree, Yggdrasil, their threads entwining the past, present, and future. In their hands, the fate of the cosmos is sealed, unchangeable, inevitable. Urd, Verdandi, and Skuld. These are the names of the Norns who weave the destinies of all. Urd, the keeper of the past. Verdandi, the master of the present. And Skuld, the enigma of what is yet to come. Even the gods cannot escape their judgments. Odin himself, the wise beyond measure, cannot alter the fate that the Norns have woven. All he can do is prepare for what he knows is coming. The twilight of the gods. The Norns' power is absolute. They see the end long before it arrives, and their vision is clear. Ragnarok, the doom of the gods. Odin, who has sought to uncover every mystery of the universe, knows that the threads of fate have already been woven. His own death and that of his kin is foretold. The end cannot be stopped, only delayed. Ragnarok, the end of all things. It is the prophecy whispered in the halls of Asgard, feared by gods and mortals alike. It begins with chaos, the wolf, Skoll, and Hati devouring the sun and the moon, plunging the world into darkness. The great serpent Jormungandr will rise from the depths of the ocean, and the fire giant Surtur will set the world ablaze. In this battle, even the gods will fall. Odin, Thor, Loki, none can escape their fate. The prophecy is clear. Odin will face the monstrous wolf Fenrir and fall, swallowed whole by its jaws. Thor will fight the world serpent Jormungandr, only to succumb to its poison moments after his victory. Loki, the trickster, will betray the gods in this final hour, leading an army of the dead into battle. And Surtur, the fire giant, will strike the final blow, his flaming sword igniting the world in an inferno that spares no one. But even in the midst of this devastation, the prophecy of Ragnarok holds another truth, a whisper of rebirth. From the ashes of the old world, a new one will rise. The cycle of death and destruction is not an ending, but a beginning. 2 human survivors, Lif and Lifterson, will emerge from the shelter of Yggdrasil's roots, and a new generation of gods will be born. The world, though forever changed, will live again. In the end, the Norse believed that even fate, as merciless and unstoppable as it seemed, was part of a larger cycle, one that stretches beyond the end of the world. The destruction of Ragnarok does not bring eternal darkness, but instead paves the way for a new dawn. A new world will emerge, a new age of gods and men. For in Norse mythology, even death is not final. In the 9th century, the world trembled as the Norse set sail, driven by both hunger and ambition. The Viking expansion was not just a quest for wealth. It was a journey to spread their culture, their beliefs, and their gods across the known world. From the icy fjords of Scandinavia, the Viking warriors brought with them more than just their swords. They carried the myths of Odin, Thor, and Loki into the very heart of Europe. As the Vikings raided, traded, and settled across Europe, Norse mythology spread like wildfire. In England, Ireland, and the northern reaches of France, the gods of Asgard took root. Tales of Thor's thunderous hammer and Odin's all-seeing wisdom mingled with local legends, creating a cultural exchange that would shape entire regions. In Iceland, the Viking settlers preserved their beliefs in the sagas, passing down the stories of their gods through oral traditions, ensuring that the myths survived even as they traveled far from home. Wherever the Vikings went, their gods followed. Odin, the one-eyed wanderer, Thor, the mighty protector, and Freyja, the goddess of love and war. These figures shaped not just the spiritual lives of the Norse, but also the cultures they encountered. From the shores of Greenland to the rivers of Russia, Norse mythology wove itself into the very fabric of the Viking Age. But the spread of Norse mythology was not to last. As the Viking Age drew to a close, a new force swept across Scandinavia: Christianity. Slowly, the ancient gods of the north were replaced by the singular figure of Christ, and the rituals of the blot gave way to the rites of baptism. The Christianization of Scandinavia was gradual, but relentless. In the 10th and 11th centuries, kings like Olaf Tryggvason and Harald Bluetooth converted to Christianity, using their newfound faith as a tool to unify their kingdoms and consolidate power. But for the common people, the old ways did not die easily. They clung to their beliefs, performing secret sacrifices and whispering prayers to the old gods long after the churches were built. The conversion to Christianity was a turning point in Norse history. The gods who had once ruled over the seas and skies were relegated to the shadows, their temples destroyed, their stories silenced. But though the gods fell, their influence did not vanish completely. Even as Christianity took hold, the old myths found ways to survive. In the dark forests and quiet fjords of Scandinavia, echoes of the ancient gods lingered in folklore. The tales of giants, elves, and spirits persisted, and Thor, the god of thunder, was remembered in the very storms that shook the land. In Scandinavian folklore, the spirit of Norse mythology endured. Odin's wild hunt became a part of winter legends, and Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, continued to be worn as a protective charm, even by those who had long embraced the cross. The gods of old, though no longer worshipped in grand temples, lived on in the stories told by the fire, in the landscapes that had always been their domain. Norse mythology may have been pushed to the margins by the rise of Christianity, but it never truly disappeared. Instead, it became part of the cultural DNA of Scandinavia, surviving in the echoes of the sagas, the rhythm of the seasons, and the whispered tales of gods who refuse to be forgotten. Though centuries have passed since the last Viking raids and the temples to the Norse gods crumbled into dust, their legacy endures. In the flicker of screens, the turn of pages, and the brushstrokes of modern art, the myths of Odin, Thor, and Loki have found new life. From the sprawling worlds of fantasy novels to the epic clashes of video game realms, Norse mythology has reemerged. This time, not in temples or sacred groves, but in the imaginations of millions. In today's world, Norse mythology is everywhere. Hollywood has turned the thunder god Thor into a pop culture icon, his hammer crashing across cinema screens and box office hits. In video games, players step into the shoes of ancient warriors, fighting gods and monsters in realms inspired by Asgard and Jotunheim. And in literature, the epic tales of Norse sagas have inspired generations of authors. From Tolkien's Middle-earth, where dwarves and elves echo the ancient legends, to Gaiman's retellings that breathe new life into the myths. These ancient stories have been woven into the fabric of modern storytelling, captivating audiences with their timeless themes of heroism, betrayal, and fate. In the digital age, the gods of old have become more than myths. They are cultural symbols, shaping how we view the world and ourselves. Thor's hammer, once a symbol of protection, is now a sign of resilience and strength across cultures. But for some, the gods of Asgard are not just characters in a story. They are living forces, worthy of reverence and worship once more. In the modern era, the ancient faiths of Scandinavia have been reborn. The revival of Asatru, a neo-pagan movement dedicated to the Norse gods, has brought back the rituals of the Viking Age. In forests and fields, in urban apartments and sacred groves, modern-day followers of Asatru practice the rites of their ancestors, offering mead and sacrifice to the gods. Asatru and similar movements have spread across the globe, with thousands seeking to reconnect with the ancient ways. To these believers, the Norse Pantheon is not confined to the pages of sagas. They are living deities, guiding their followers through the challenges of modern life. This resurgence of Norse paganism has reignited interest in the myths, not as mere stories, but as spiritual paths that resonate in an age searching for meaning. But beyond the revival of belief, Norse mythology has left a lasting legacy on our understanding of history itself. The tales of Odin's wisdom, Thor's might, and Loki's trickery offer glimpses into the minds of the Viking people. These myths shape their world, their beliefs, and their sense of identity. And today, they help us piece together the fragments of a civilization that continues to inspire wonder. The myths of the Norse gods are more than just stories. They are windows into the soul of a people who once ruled the northern seas. As archaeologists uncover more relics, as historians delve deeper into the sagas, the rich tapestry of Norse mythology becomes clearer. These tales allow us to not only understand the spiritual beliefs of the Vikings, but to see how their myths continue to shape our modern understanding of the past. We began our journey in the primordial void, Ginnunga Gap, where the cosmos took shape from ice and fire. From the first giant Ymir to the birth of Odin and the creation of the world, we've traced the roots of Norse mythology back to the very beginning. These stories, born in the frozen north, shape not just the worldviews of the Vikings, but the very fabric of their lives, guiding them through war, conquest, and the mysteries of existence itself. Norse mythology is more than just a series of ancient tales. It is a living, breathing record of how the Vikings saw their place in the universe, a world shaped by gods and giants, where fate was inescapable and the end was always looming. Yet, even in the face of destruction, there was always the promise of rebirth. Ragnarok would not be the end, but a new beginning. In this cycle of death and rebirth, we see the heart of Norse belief, a world where destruction gives way to new life, where the gods themselves cannot escape their fate, but where hope endures. This mythology, built on cycles of change and the unrelenting power of destiny, continues to resonate today because it mirrors the human experience, our struggles, our fears, and our endless search for meaning. Why do these myths still captivate us today? Perhaps it's because, like the Vikings, we too face a world of uncertainty and chaos. The stories of Thor's strength, Odin's wisdom, and Loki's cunning remind us that even the mightiest fall, but also that resilience, courage, and sacrifice matter. In a world that can feel as unpredictable as the one the Vikings navigated, we find solace in these ancient stories, drawing on their timeless themes to make sense of our own lives. The gods may have faded from the temples, but they live on in our imaginations. Norse mythology, with its raw power and unyielding vision of fate, has found its way into the heart of modern culture, woven into the tales we tell, the art we create, and the way we see the world. It reminds us that even in the face of destruction, there is always the possibility of rebirth, of something new rising from the ashes. As we close this journey through the myths of the Norse, one thing is clear. The stories of the gods, giants, and heroes will never truly fade. They are eternal, as ancient and enduring as the world tree itself, forever rooted in the heart of human imagination, growing and evolving with each new generation. Join the journey, like and subscribe for more legendary tales and epic adventures.